Alright guys, Hayzink here, welcome back to the channel for another Street Fighter Duel video. So in this video I'm going to be talking again about BADDEST Juri, and I'm going to be explaining to you guys exactly why I regret this. Okay, I regret using my supplies to get Juri to S. And there's a few reasons for that, and I'm going to explain them within this video. Show you a little bit of footage as well that kind of explains what I'm talking about, and how, for me and how I play the game now, she's not really vibing with me as a character, okay? Now, that doesn't change what I said in my initial video. She is still got the potential to be the hardest hitting trigger DPS, okay? But there's a caveat there now, okay? And the caveat I'll explain throughout the course of this video, okay? Now, first of all, the first thing that I realised upon getting Juri done and starting to use her, there was a reason that I stopped using Monster Hunter Ken. And that is something that I highlighted in a previous video. When you're using trigger units, if you play on auto, they are fantastic. And I used to be an auto player, as a lot of people know. And I stopped playing on auto quite some time ago, and really within about that same time period I stopped using Monster Hunter Ken. And to be honest, I didn't think it had anything to do with playing on auto, okay? I just thought that Ken had dropped off a little bit and I wasn't getting the kind of results from him that I used to get from him. I now know that that was a result of me becoming a manual based player, okay? So because of that, the same things that made me sour on Ken actually apply to Juri, okay? But she's got a couple of things that Ken doesn't have that means even though she can hit harder than Ken, she might actually not outclass Ken as a trigger unit, and I'm going to explain in detail now what I'm talking about, okay? But first off, I need to show you a little bit of footage that helps me explain what I'm talking about a little bit better, so that you guys don't just think, what are you talking about, Hayes? I'll show you just now, okay? Okay, so when I play this footage, I'm going to do it twice because I want to show you the action, and I also want you to look at the score, okay? That is important. I'm going to pause it every so often to talk through what it is I'm explaining. But basically, because of the way that Juri is as a unit, she's a bit like Trendy Cammy in the way that, and a lot of other units, in the way that she can whiff her attacks. What I mean by whiff her attacks is she can basically attack thinner, right? Meaning that despite having the potential to hit high numbers, if you are missing attacks, you're getting 0 for those attacks, okay? So if you look here just now, we'll play this, right? So she's doing her first super attack. So if you look there, you can see her super attacks come down. We're going back just a little tiny bit. So look at the score, it's 66,000, okay? Now if you look, when she does her super attack here, she attacks the ground in front of Chun-Li. She doesn't actually hit Chun-Li. So the score did not change at all, okay? Meaning she completely whiffed that attack, making that attack worth absolutely 0, okay? Now, there is like 2 other times that she does this within the same sort of a combo chain. This is really going to be affected, you see there at the back, when she was doing her C3, she was attacking nothing but air, right? So if we go back and look again, you can see that Juri is out there currently because the target's moved. She's attacking nothing right now, and the way that her hits are, it's multiple hits causing X amount of damage. So that means, let's just say, to make it nice and easy, it's 3 hits and the total damage is 300%. That means hit 1, 100, hit 2, 200, hit 3, 300. All 3 hits connect, that's you done 300% damage. So when she goes to the back, if a unit's moved, the first strike will cause some damage, but if the unit moves out of that area, then she's just hitting nothing, right? It's the same effect that you've got with Akuma. If you guys have used Akuma, you will have had periods where Akuma is just literally doing the death strike to nothing but air, right? So that's literally in the same combo. She fluffed her super, and then she's fluffed her C3. Now after this it happens again, right? Immediately again. Now you can see that she's up in the air just now. I think this may have been caused by her backflip, I'm not entirely sure, but you'll see that when she does her attack, for some unknown reason, I think it's actually on the next one, come to think about it, I think it's coming up just about here. So she's currently behind Sagat, and then you can see she starts her kicks there, and she comes down behind Sagat. Now the confusing thing for me there is I can't actually see why she would have fluffed that attack, right? Normally it's because a unit has maybe moved, because the way that Street Fighter Duel works is it's unfortunate. It's almost as if the unit attacks the area rather than the unit, right? So when your attack triggers, wherever that unit is standing, your unit is going to attack that area rather than attacking the character. So if that character happens to have moved out with that area, your unit will still attack that area. It's a weird mechanic, okay? And honestly, I don't want to say it's not a bug, it's just the way the game's designed. It's because characters don't react to being hit, basically, is the best way of putting it. Obviously if you play Street Fighter, normal Street Fighter, if you hit a character, that character will recoil or whatever, right? And it's affected by you hitting it. Whereas in Street Fighter Duel, if you're fighting a boss, for example, that boss has got a linear pattern of animations that it doesn't deviate from, no matter how much it's being hit in the face. If it on 20 seconds is going to move forward, it's going to move forward whether it's been smacked in the face or not, right? So I think that if we look here and you can see where this attack triggered, it must have triggered about here, but there's nothing there to say why she would then attack that space. I don't really see why that happened, right? So the reason that I say that, I think ultimately, I hate saying this after I made that last video, Ken might actually be better than her, is pretty straightforward, and I'll explain, I'll show you it just now, right? So if we look at Ken here with his triggers, right? I don't want alone, go away. If we look at his triggers, right? So you can see here, this is his first trigger. It should do the animation. Right, so this is super attack. How did I get it to play his triggers again? Right, so that was a swipe. See that swipe forward? Big massive swipe. Area of effect, right? You should do an overhead one as well. Might just need to show you in a fight. I'm going to need to just show you in a fight, right? I'll just go and do a random fight. Is my guild Shadowlands open yet? Might be. Nope. Fantastic. Cheers. Thanks. That was helpful. I'll just go to the boss, right? This boss is not the best boss to show this one, but I'll do it anyway. So we will just take this team here, put it up to here. And I'm going to do this on auto just so that you can actually see it. And I'm just going to do it from the start. I'm not attempting at all to go for any kind of score here. So if you look, we can put this to 1 speed. We've left it on auto. So after he does his attack, Ken will do his first attack. It's a large sweeping area, and then he does his second attack, which is a massive overhead cleave, right? Now, the thing that ultimately might make him better as a trigger DPS than Juri is the fact that because his range of attack is so big, even though he might hit less like DPS, less numbers per attack, if he's hitting his attacks more consistently, then overall damage numbers are going to put him higher. It's simple as that. I mean, if you've got someone who can hit for 10,000 and maybe 2 in every 5 hits potentially misses, versus someone who can hit for 8,000 and they land every one of their hits. The person who hits 8,000, even though it's not as hard, they're hitting more consistently, they're probably going to produce more numbers in the long term. Now, the reason that I regret Juri is, one, because I play manual now, and playing manual, the big issue I've got is when I do use Juri, on a manual rotation where I've delayed it to make sure she can get her triggers in, it takes me 18 seconds to complete 2 combos, okay? 18 seconds to complete 2 combos. Now, just using a non-trigger team, let's go with, I mean, I don't really want to go with, do you know what, this is not the best team, right? But let's just see how many combos I can get in manually, not using a trigger unit where I'm having to delay, right? So I'm just going to build up enough super gauge just so that we can see the difference here, right? So 2 combos, I'll wait till it goes up to 3 combos, and then I'll do this, do a time check first so that we can check at the end. Right, so 56 seconds, I'm going to start the combo now. So on 40 seconds, we'll see how many combos we've actually been able to achieve, okay? So 40 seconds is our cut-off point. In that time with Juri, I would have done 2 combos, okay? So let's see what it is here, right? Let's go. So do that, do that, do that. Probably use the worst team possible for this. Round about 3 combos, say, right? So in the same time period using a manual team, it's round about 3 combos. Now if you think about this, if you're running teams where you're waiting to potentially the last 56 seconds, the last 45 seconds of a battle before you start doing your combos, that means running Juri on bosses, which she might not be ideal for, but running her on bosses, you're limiting yourself to potentially 4 combos. Whereas with another team who doesn't have a trigger, you can get off potentially 6 combos. So using a non-trigger unit that's got decent DPS, just by virtue of getting 2 full additional combos, if you've got a decent team set up, you should really outscore that trigger unit, right? You should, even if that trigger unit hits good numbers, having 2 entire full combos, really, if you've got decent teams, you should outscore them, right? You should, even with divination units, you really should look at outscoring them. So that is ultimately why Juri's not really doing it for me. The issue with whiffing her attacks and stuff like that gives me the fear for the likes of Super Showdown, because if you're running her in Super Showdown, anyone who's played a while, who has been in Super Showdown, will have probably either A, experienced, or B, seen times where units like Akuma or units like Joshin Ibuki have whiffed their attacks at a key moment where if they had not missed that attack, you would probably have won the fight, but by missing that attack, it was enough to cost you the fight. Juri being the way that she is gives me the fear, because she does seem like she's a unit that could win you fights, but she also seems like she's a unit that could lose you fights by missing her attacks. It's not a bug, it's just the way the game is. And when you're doing something like Super Showdown, if you're not in control, so if you cannot work out where people are going to attack and how to make sure you don't whiff your attacks, it literally could be something that costs you the fight. So I ultimately do regret her, I do. I don't think she's a bad unit, I really don't. Is if she has an ideal round where she's not missed any attacks, where she's not fluffed anything, then absolutely she's going to do more damage than Monster Hunter can. But that consistency he brings, I just think probably ultimately does mean that he is going to do more, just because he's going to land more hits. It's as simple as that. But the one thing that I have really not discovered, rediscovered I suppose is the better way of putting it, is if you're playing manually, honestly, I don't think trigger DPS units are really cutting the mustard anymore, because the way that you're going to score high on the likes of events and bosses is by going quickly. It is by doing quick, fast manual rotations, getting in as many as you can. That is what's going to drive your score, and you can't do that with these units. This does not apply to someone like Summer Elena. She's different. She's a buffer. She always will come in. You're not going to outpace her no matter how fast you go. So someone like her works, okay? But when it comes to DPS trigger units like this, the fact that to run an optimal strategy to beat a boss, you are going to literally gimp them and make them not do what they're supposed to do. And then factoring in things like missing attacks, these things to me drive down our value a little bit. And while I'm not going to walk back what I said about she does outmatch Ken when it comes to pure DPS, I will say that she doesn't make him irrelevant, because again, his consistency is key, and in the long run it probably does outmatch the odd perfect run, because it's like a bookie. If you run a bookie and you run a bookie on the perfect run, she is fantastic. But it's not always that easy to get that with her, because things can happen, your timing can just be slightly off, all that type of stuff. Whereas with someone like Ken, because he's an area of effect with a large area, you just don't need to worry about it. So if you are someone who has invested in Monster Hunter Ken using your Starlight or whatever, do not despair. If you haven't and you play manual, I probably wouldn't bother too much about him, because again, you're going to get more mileage out of your standard units than you will out of your trigger units. But I just felt like I wanted to address this, because if more people get their hands on Juri and they start to experience things like I have, like having to slow down, like missing attacks and stuff, if I hadn't made this video, people would be like, oh wait a minute, you said she was amazing. Technically I didn't say she was amazing, I said that she was a harder hitting trigger unit than Ken, which she is. But so anyway, I've cleared it up now, no one can criticise me. Anyway, catch you in the next one. Peace.